So we're doing our world tour of the. Don't hide the vodka bottle.
So that's actually there's a little ceremony on the Dynamics AX client team.
Yeah.
That whenever they complete a milestone, and we make sure it's kind of after the last check-in has been done and not before, they celebrate with one of these, and then they all sign it and put the date of the release and what the milestone is.
Excellent.
So, but I was trying to get that out of there before you started. As long as you caught it, I'll explain it.
That's not an HR violation, is it? Yes, it is. I can take HR on quite a few office tours.
It's the decorative talking rain bottle, so it's only water.
So anyways, I'm taking a tour of the Dynamics team, and who are you?
My name's Mike Ehrenberg.
And what do you do here?
So I actually have two roles here. I'm an architect on the next generation tools and platform for Dynamics, and I'm also the director of development for one of those teams.
Okay.
So it's kind of it's an odd thing, but I think it's a.
So you're a visionary and a manager at the same time.
This sort of standard story is architects spend their time making PowerPoints about stuff that you can't build. And then development management says no to everything that the architects propose. So this is kind of a nasty little trick to make me have to have that problem all inside my own head. So I'm doing reasonably okay. I'm taking some medication for it.
The vodka, that's what the vodka is.
There you go. So there's the true answer on the vodka.
Now, up on your wall, you have a bunch of baseball pictures. I just have to find out what the interest is there.
Huge baseball fan. And
sounds like you're a Boston Red Sox fan.
Yes, moved to Redmond, came to Microsoft from Boston.
Okay.
And so still a huge Red Sox fan. Although I love going to Safeco and watching the Mariners. I love it more when it's watching them play the Red Sox. And that actually may be the source of the project of our project name, which is actually the code name is Fenway, and people think that it's a direct reference to the ballpark, and perhaps it was, but afterwards we rationalized it that it's not the ballpark, but there's a stop on the Boston subway line that's right outside there, and that's on it's on the Green Line, and the sort of original code name for all of our forward-looking research was Project Green. And Fenway is it's one stop on that train line before three branches of the Green Line converge. And convergence is another theme that we have in the ERP side of business solutions. So the way we explain it now is that that Fenway is the stop where all the branches of Green converge.
Right.
It's either that or it's the ballpark. You can pick which one it is.
Very cool.
So.
What did you do in Boston before you came out here?
So I've built enterprise software for about 25 years. I spent 10 or 15 years of that building banking transaction systems, so automatic teller machines and branch
systems. Did you hang out with the Mitch Kapoor crowd?
I've worked with a lot of people that came from Lotus, but I never
they had a big office
there.
in Boston.
Right, exactly. And then after that, I led a team that built an ERP product for manufacturers in the food and chemical businesses, and it was all built on the Microsoft stack. So I spent a lot of time as a Microsoft ISV partner before coming here.
Now, you're working right now on a version that we won't see of Dynamics until what, 2007, 2008?
2008 is the target. Yep.
Okay. So we can't talk about that, right?
Well,
can we give you some vodka and see if you talk?
You won't get it. You can turn the lights up. You can drip stuff on my head, but no, you won't get any of that. I don't think we can't talk about details, but we can certainly talk about kind of the themes of what we're doing. The neat thing is we kind of established our roadmap over the last couple of years. We went and talked to customers. We have a big event every year where we meet with all our customers and partners, which we call Convergence. And
that's coming up, and I think that's why I'm shooting all these.
There you go.
Hey, I knew there was a theme. Somebody had planned a theme out for me.
You're all set. And, Convergence, actually Convergence last year, we talked about our roadmap. We laid out what we'd be doing over 2005, 2007, which we called Wave 1.
Yeah.
And we laid out what we'll be doing after that, which is what we call mysteriously Wave 2, with delivery starting in 2008. And kind of the neat thing is we're going back and we've got exactly the same roadmap. We've got, we made a ton of progress where we have deliveries on all of our products against the Wave 1 themes. And what we've been working on, we're making progress on the Wave 2 stuff as well. So, in terms of what the sort of the basic themes, I'm fine to talk about that.
Sure.
If you ask too many details, I'll have to throw the bottle at you.
Oh, okay. Well, what is the color of the icon on the 4th page?
That's the last thing that happens before we ship. So.
I know.
But mysteriously, you'll find there's some reddish orange, some green, and some blue, and some yellow in there. So those are not surprising colors in the Microsoft spectrum.
Yep. What are the themes? And what are you doing with? Tell me a little bit about the development process that's been going on for the last year or two. Because we've heard a lot of rumors and all. And we've gotten around.
Rumors and even facts. So
yeah, we'll start some of our own rumors. I'm sure Mary Jo Foley will watch this video, right?
Yeah, I actually think an alternate approach is rather than working and despite your best efforts, having a bunch of rumors pop up. That might actually be better to just go take time off, play golf, wait, collect the rumors, and pick the best ones and then implement on that. But since we haven't done that, what we've really been spending our time on is trying to make the software work more the way that people do their work. Right. And we spent a significant amount of time out talking to customers. And not just talking to customers, watch them go through their workday, and seeing what part of their work was actually in the system and what part of it was on the phone, on faxes, in email, on papers that were scattered all over their desk. And I think that for way too many people today, the business application software is actually, it's another task for them. They do their work and then they have to go into the system to tell the system. Yeah. And it really should be the other way around. It should be the system helping them do their work. It should be the system guiding them through their work. And the big part of that is that we need to get to the point that the systems understand have models for more of what the people really do.
Today's dynamic software, how much of today's dynamic software fits that kind of discovery that you've gone through?
So
are we 1/10 of the way through? Are we halfway there?
So we've done a number of things, and and so we've made progress, but I think we're just really at the beginning of what can happen. Right. I think that what we're doing with the releases that we're shipping this year. Is we're really making it possible for partners and for ISVs to do a much better job of not just that our applications make it possible using other technologies that are part of the Microsoft stack, right. To really build things that fit the way people work. And I can talk about that in a second. But one of the things we did a talk at PDC this summer. Where I think we showed exactly that, and we took a version of Exapta 4, which will ship later this year. In fact, it was right during the week that the name changed from Exapta 4 to Dynamics AX4, and so shipping as Dynamics AX4 using Workflow Foundation, using WCF, and using all the things, in fact, that we've changed the names of in the last few months, to really, instead of just addressing the transaction that the business app needed to know about, really helping the people do their work around that. So that what the scenario is for a business trying to add a new vendor. Okay. And if you go look at a business application, you bring up a screen, it says add new vendor, you fill in the information, you hit save, and that vendor is now part of the business application. That's great, but that's not what really happens in the real world. In the real world, there's either a supplier contacts a business, or a business is looking for a new supplier and goes and contacts them. Right. There's a set of conversations that either happen by phone or by email or by fax that go back and forth, where the supplier sort of makes known what their qualifications are, Do they follow the right kind of fair labor practices, et cetera? So, for example, there's a lot of companies, if you go to their website, they'll explain what the practices are that they require of all of their suppliers. And so you have to go sort of discover that about a new supplier. You want to record that you've checked that. Somebody in the business is going to actually go check, hey, do we already have a relationship with them someplace else? And then finally you'll get to the point that somebody else is going to say, yes, it's okay, we'll approve the addition of this supplier. And so then that last step in the process is you should go put them into the business system, right? And so today our applications only deal with that last step, and they don't provide anything about the first part.
Really?
So, and that's not a Dynamics AX thing. This is an example you could apply to all of the things that we compete with. And our view is really to try and change that, and provide applications that help with that first part when you want to make changes in that first part. So, for example, if you've got new rules that you want to apply to how you qualify vendors, you should be able to change the rules in the software, and then automatically everybody who's involved with that should be guided through the new process.
Why did it take until now to discover the current software just fitting the bill?
Yeah, I think to a great extent that there's a lot of things that are all coming together right now that make it possible to do these things, and it would have been very, very difficult to do it before. So a couple of those things are that you've got some sort of core technologies like Windows Communication Foundation and Windows Workflow, and particularly the Workflow Foundation.
Yeah.
If you look at the way these processes work, these are the areas that are just they're much different as you go from business to business. Everybody sort of does their GL the same way. The accounting rules set that up. And sure, there are differences by country, etc.
GL is General Ledger.
General Ledger.
Yep.
Sorry, it's a 2-letter acronym, so I didn't go into 3-letter acronyms. But if you look at, for example, this kind of process of what do we do when we have a new supplier, if you look in a small business, that's just going to be the business decision maker talking to his counterpart at the other place, make sure everything's in place. You go to a much larger company, it's going to be much more structured, you have more people involved, and so there's a need to be flexible, and even to deal with exceptions that come up where somebody looks at it and says, yeah, I think we want to do this, but I want John's opinion on it as well, and I need to be able to bring that in an ad hoc way. And to try to capture that stuff in code is extremely difficult. Workflow Foundation is something that from the beginning is exactly designed to deal with that. So I think that you've got new technologies, and combining Workflow Foundation and then using the Communications Foundation as when it's appropriate, here's a great way to actually talk to the business application.
Right.
So in Dynamics AX, for example, we made a lot of effort, and actually across all of the Dynamics products, to make sure that the appropriate business logic was available as to be consumed as web services. Then you can use Windows Communication Foundation. Then you can use...
That's in the current versions?
That is in the Wave 1 version, so the things that are being shipped this year and next year across the products. Okay. We'll have very, very broad web services support. So I think when you take broad web services support, the Workflow Foundation, and also the great stuff that's being done in SharePoint to let people also work with workflows in an even less structured way. I think that stuff was necessary in order for us to take the applications in that direction. And so I think we've made great progress to show how people can do that, and we're making sure that our Wave 1 releases support doing that, and then the things that we're doing in Wave 2 is how do we make that even more fundamental and bring it inside rather than leave it as an exercise to be done by customers.
Interesting. So Did you do the research, or how do you do your job? What does an architect do all day long?
How we make slides. Yeah, our major development tool is PowerPoint. That's the.
That's scary.
Yeah. Well, the thing that as a community, the architects are all working on is a capability to actually generate code directly from PowerPoint, which
we had an April Fool's joke last year about that, and people took it a little too seriously, actually, which was.
No, so it's interesting. I think part of it is 25 years in the business, and a lot of it with direct customer and partner contact. Yeah. When I started working as a doing support, so getting sent into customer situations when nothing worked and being told it was okay to come home when it was all better.
Yep.
And then moving from that to working on actual implementations of the business application, so more on the front end. Right. And then working with customers directly to sort of talk about what was the next set of problems that the software should target. So for me, there's no sort of substitute for the experience and the time. What we've done here is we have a ton of people that have similar or related backgrounds. So because of the sort of diverse history within MBS, within Business Solutions, from the Great Plains base, from the Navision base, from Solomon, from Exapta. So we have lots of people with similar, long history of experience. And the cool thing is combining groups with a lot of North American experience and with a lot of European experience, we get a very kind of much more balanced view of things.
Yeah.
On top of that, we also, as part of the Project Green work that we talked about before, working with the planning group, I went out and did huge numbers of, thousands of hours of interviews. And in addition, as I said this earlier, it wasn't just
interviews with customers.
With customers, but it wasn't just interviews. We spent the time watching them do their jobs. So we got the it's one thing to go.
Did you video them, or you just went and checked with them?
Absolutely. So there's terabytes of storage that are consumed with the videos that we've done of people doing their work. And it's one thing to go to a customer or a prospect and sit in a conference room with somebody and ask them what they want. Yeah. It's entirely different to go out there and watch them work. And I think the fundamental difference is, if you ask questions, most of the time what you're going to get is, hey, this function doesn't work right, and it's all about what the software does cover. Yeah. And how do I make that a little bit better? The perspective.
Well, and the customers tell you the wrong thing, right? Well, if you ask a Porsche user how do you make it better, they say, "Oh, I'd like a little more headroom, and I'd like a little smoother ride, and I'd like a little more trunk room." Well, they just designed a Volvo.
Right. No, that's true. It's true. And the Volvo guy wished it wasn't quite so boxy and would go a little bit faster, right?
Yeah.
And so it's at some level, you kind of get there's a balance you can get by asking customers versus people who didn't pick your system, right? Because you're going to get two sides of the same thing, and that's important. But this was actually, by watching them do their work, you got to see where the system just wasn't even part of the equation, right? And so those things are never going to come up, except with a rare individual. Are they going to come up when you sit in a conference room and ask them questions about it? But you almost can't help seeing it if you watch them do their work.
Interesting.
And so,
how do you convince people to let you tag along for a couple of days?
I offer them Xbox.
Now we know that it's competitive secret to Dynamics right there.
It's the universal currency of scarce resources. So I think we spent a lot of time talking about how important all of the other pieces of what Microsoft does are to the business solutions offering. There you've got the clue on how the Xbox stuff plays in. It's the way to get access to people. No, you know what? It's customers love to have the opportunity to influence what's coming next.
Yeah.
And for a lot of them, it was also, we shared everything back with them that we saw from looking at their business.
Yeah.
And it was, some of them even got interesting pieces out of that. So, they were actually very, very willing to do it. And the cool thing will be over the next few years to start showing them the fruits of that research. And so we're pretty excited about that.
So how many sessions do you do with customers? I mean,
honestly, I'd have to go look, but
a lot.
Lots.
Okay.
Thousands of hours, went on for months. We had teams split up and going to different regions, different types of businesses, different functions within the business. It was, the interesting thing was the kind of effort that only somebody like Microsoft would be able to do. And, we're trying to attack a very large problem. It's great to be able to do it that way.
Yeah. Why only Microsoft? Why couldn't a kid in Silicon Valley do it, or why couldn't?
I think diversity of our customer base all over the place that we could talk to, partners that we could work with to get access to that, and just the size of the commitment that we made of people and time to go do the research, and then come back and try to and look at the research and try to figure out what we learned and how to then translate that into the themes of the
next release. Let's talk about that. What does that research look like? Is it a stack of books? Is it a database that every employee can look at?
No, mysteriously, it is there's a big SharePoint site internally where we've got all of this work organized. In terms of the analysis of that work, there were a couple of things that we built out of it. So the first thing were kind of what are the core pillars of what we want to focus on, and so as we looked at those things, empowering users was one of the sort of top themes. So
what does that mean?
So rather than the software being another, this was something I said earlier, rather than the software being another task that I need to do after I've done my work, the software should instead be something that helps me do my job. The software should know what I'm supposed to do next after I receive an invoice, after I finish a manufacturing production schedule. The software should know what I need to do next and should help me with that.
Right.
If I'm doing something collaboratively with other people in my business, the software should be able to tell me who's on the team that's doing that, who's in the office, who's out of the office, how do I communicate with those people. And again, those are things where that we can build on the capabilities that are available elsewhere in the Microsoft stack in order to make those things work in a very seamless way.
Okay.
So turning it around so that we're actually empowering the users instead of being work for the users. Connected was another piece, is that frequently, even today, the business application is sort of the domain of users that are heads down entering transactions. And we really need to expand the perspective so that every employee gets the benefit of the information that's in there. And I think one of the things that Microsoft Dynamics CRM has been extremely successful is because they realized that salespeople aren't people who sit at their desk doing, if they are, then they're not selling, and that's not a good thing.
Yep.
But they need, they're mobile. And so they needed a situation that understood that. And so by making Outlook kind of and the browser the principal way in which that you interacted with CRM, and those sort of slightly more difficult to connect to employees, makes that a very attractive product. So connecting to more of the people besides the heads down users, and even more importantly, realizing that the business application doesn't just live inside the firewall of the business that's running it, but connecting to my vendors, to my customers, and to my partners. And so we're doing a lot of work in that area.
When I worked at a really big company, I worked at NEC, which had 115,000 employees.
So they were one of the places I worked before. They were the partner working with our ERP for process manufacturers. So I spent a lot of time working with them.
Yeah,
We're actually working with them here now.
I learned that enterprises tend to compartmentalize and try to almost hide things, or they don't try to make things open. Where
it's not clear that they try to hide things. It's just that
they do.
things wind up being siloed by default.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I never talked outside of my little group. Here at Microsoft, we have a very open information sharing system.
Right.
Comparatively, it's still not very open when you compare it to a little startup or something, but.
And so that the part of our whole perspective is that that everybody should be connected around the business application, and really the perspective needs to be around a user's role, and whatever they need to help them do their job in their role is what the system should very naturally make visible to them. So we talk a lot about role-based computing, and that really is saying that if Jim logs in, actually. Behind me, you can see.
Yeah.
This is kind of the summary poster of
we went
that
over
research
that
work.
In another interview.
Right, and so we refer to that as the MBS customer model, and you can see 52 personas that we sort of drew out of that research, and talking about, okay, for those 52 people, what are the processes that they participate in, and as a result of that, what's the information that they should and need to have access to. So that's, here you sort of see the summary of all of that work into the concepts around user empowerment, around role-based computing, around the other one we talk about is affordable adaptability, and I know that you spent some time talking with other people.
That sounds like a key. What does that mean?
So the idea is we spend a lot of time thinking about the work that people do.
Yeah.
And the processes that they participate in. We want to bring those processes into the software, and the sort of the core differentiators for Microsoft, as opposed to the other people that we compete with, really is around two things: the user part that we've been talking about, really being software that works the way that people want to, and the flip side is affordable adaptability. I talked earlier about the fact that as you get into trying to look at the processes people participate in, those are the things where you have to have ultimate flexibility. Some of them are not very structured, so you need to be able to deal with that. Those are the things that change as a business changes, as a business grows, as things reorganize, and you really need to be flexible about that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we want that flexibility, that adaptability, to be something that is almost something that the business can control themselves. And They don't have to go out and get expensive software consultants to go make changes every time there's a business change.
Yeah.
And if you have that
enterprise software, expensive consultants is almost synonymous with enterprise software.
No, exactly. And we're looking for a different model. We're looking for a model where you can bring partners and consultants in, but they come in to help you add value to your business, not to make software work.
Right.
Right. And that when you've got to change in a business process, you should be able to have your department heads in purchasing, for example, make a change to the way the purchasing process works, and then and make that change in the software, and have the software then drive that through the rest of the organization. It shouldn't be something where you're in a meeting and says, "Hey, we want to change the way we make purchase decisions." But we can't put the new process in place for 6 months because we have to wait for the consultants to fix the software.
Yeah.
That's unfortunately where things are today. We do well with our products because they're more flexible than most.
Right.
We're looking to kind of take the next leap.
Interesting.
And then we'll have another one of those bottles when we get there. So we'll all sign it. So.
You guys are really unique at Microsoft because of your persona model, your customer model, and the process. But I can see a lack of agility there. Do you think you could do it in a shorter amount of time? Because this requires a lot of work. Work is not something you can do in 2 months, is it?
No, this is the real deal.
This is not internet time.
No, but I think that. I don't think it's necessarily that hard a problem. In the sense is we absolutely don't. We're not getting to this by throwing out everything and starting from scratch.
Okay.
This is very much an evolutionary approach, and I think that the important thing is we can look at an individual role,
yeah,
and look at the work that that person does and the processes that that person does, and we can implement around that role. And through the other work that we've done, for example, by making the application work well as web services, you can implement new roles, new processes in a new way, and have it seamlessly talk to the rest of the application through those web service interfaces. So as an example, one of the sort of underserved roles is, what are the people at the top of the pyramid? What should they be getting out of the business application?
Yeah.
In the top executive roles, getting somebody who prints a report out and brings it to them, we can do better than that.
Yeah.
So we can look at what their work looks like, implement that around using the new tools, using the new models, but have it talk to the rest of the production application, and so it becomes very additive and incremental. And then over time, if we decide that, hey, we want to take one of these services, maybe around purchasing, around manufacturing, and go redo that, we can do it. So we're not going to do the whole thing in internet time,
right?
And I don't actually think anybody would necessarily want us to do that, but I think we can move pretty quickly to add new pieces, bring underserved roles, into really getting benefit out of the system, and always focus the piece that we do in any particular slice of the project on something that's going to bring the most value to the customers.
Right. How do people decide to buy enterprise software like Dynamics? And do they? It's not like when I decide to buy a digital camera where I walk in a Fry's and that one looks cool. I have a feeling it's a little bit more intense of a process.
It's not an impulse buy.
Yeah.
They don't wake up in the morning and say, I need to buy enterprise software. There really is an imperative. It starts with the parts of your business that you need to control. You need to have control over your financials. And I think if you go back to the sort of when the big rise in enterprise application purchases went through the larger companies, a lot of it was driven by their external accounting consultants coming in and saying, in order for us to continue to sign off on your financials, I think you need strong financial software that brings this all together so that we know that the same set of rules is being applied to every transaction, etc. So it really comes from an imperative. And in different businesses, you will see people apply software to whatever their hardest business problem is. One of the first customers that I worked with in the ERP space was one of the largest suppliers of frozen French fries to McDonald's. And so this is like many process businesses, pennies make all the difference between profitability and losing money. And one of the things you can see that is that there's almost no waste in the business. Potatoes will come in, and part of that potato goes into French fries. The part that doesn't make it into the high quality French fries may get chopped up and made into tater tots, and the skin that gets cut off actually gets turned back into fertilizer that goes back into the field, etc. So the difference between success and failure for them was very much around usage of their inventory. And when you have a customer like McDonald's has an amazing set of quality control standards around the fries that they will accept.
Yep.
And so in inventory you might have some potatoes that were okay to use for them and some that went someplace else that they never told us who those customers were.
They went to the vodka guy.
And so as a result of that, a burning business problem for them was making sure that they never wasted inventory.
Yeah.
And so you apply software to that. You get other people where the issue is around the logistics planning of their deliveries. That if they spend too much money on getting the product to the customer, then they don't wind up being profitable. And so you wind up that different people, they all sort of have a core need to track their books. You wind up with different people having different problems that really make the difference in whether their business succeeds or not. And you can't you just can't make it work where you keep writing unique software for whatever those individual problems are.
Right.
You know, there was real value if I was talking about inventory and how it worked with McDonald's. Well, I really only want one representation in my business of who my customers are, and I'd like to be able to go track all the way from my financial results back to the inventory transactions that made them happen. And that's kind of that's where people get the drive to use an integrated business software applications.
Right.
And I think that there's been a lot of evidence that sort of first wave of these applications really help drive productivity to new levels in business. And I think the thing that we're looking at is as we go out of the pure transactional part and into the part about where people work, the really cool thing is the potential to drive yet another sort of big leap in productivity is
because the most expensive thing in most companies is still people, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely.
You can get everything else. You can use the potato as well as you can, but if
exactly.
your people are wasting time,
exactly.
or not doing something,
and if they're not making the
efficient.
best decisions, and if they're not, if they're missing the opportunity to get a deeper relationship with a customer or solve a problem with a supplier, before it stops the production line, then that's where you're talking about sort of big lost opportunities. And I think we're looking at things where we can make that stuff just work much more smoothly.
Interesting. In the first wave, what's a guy who's buying the software? What's he going to notice that's different from the competition, or different from the previous versions, or? What's the pitch that you go into?
So I mean, some of the
2006 version of Dynamics does.
Right.
This,
okay. So we sort of talk about that around what are the core principles in the Wave 1 releases. So number one is role-based user interface, and I think that so first of all, you'll just see an updating of all the user interface to kind of line up with all the great work that's being done in things like new releases of Office and new releases of Windows, and so we're doing work to make users who are comfortable with that at home in our applications, and as a result, you're going to see better looking user interface in the business apps, which
enterprise apps are not known for user interface.
Not known for that, right? Exactly.
I've seen some pretty bad UIs nowadays.
So you're going to see stuff that looks better, and looks a lot better, and not just cosmetically, but sort of better organized to point people at the things that they should be working on. But so user interface, but role-based user interface. So where the typical thing in any business application today is, it doesn't matter who logs on. They all see the same menu with all of the choices. And Vince, who's the operations manager, he should see something different than the accounts payable clerk, right? And so kind of recognizing that and bringing the concept of role into the software and letting that shape what do I see when I log in and what is my navigation. Yeah. So I think you'll start to see improvements in that in the releases that we're doing this year. Then the next pieces would be around connected and web services, and we talked earlier about the fact that all of the products will provide rich web services interfaces.
Because developers then can build better solutions on top of it.
Developers can build better solutions on top of it. One of the things that we look at is consistency in those web service interfaces. So, we're not saying same web service interface for all of the business applications. Kind of that write once, run anywhere thing. There's there's some bad history on that, and we're not saying that. But
are they WSDL interfaces?
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
you can open Visual Studio up and go to town.
You can open Visual Studio up, point Visual Studio at one of the services, and get a great first-class Visual Studio experience with IntelliSense and kind of all the things that you'd expect. You can point InfoPath at it, and InfoPath will be able to look at the WSDL and create forms that talk to the services. And,
right.
We're doing work to work with some of the things that Office 12 and SharePoint are doing around working with web services as well.
Okay.
But that it's so it's not as a consumer of those web services that you can write once and talk to any of our products, but if you've written something to talk with one of the business applications and you need as a partner, for example, to offer that against other ones, you know, it's a minor adaptation. It's not a do-over. It's not a foreign set of tools. You're using VS, you know, exactly as you pointed out. So you're using Visual Studio. You can use whatever .NET language you want to build the part that talks to web services. So, you know, the whole kind of theme of every release doing better and better platform alignment, and so in this case it's starting to let more and more things get done through Visual Studio and standard .NET languages. So the web services piece as a connection vehicle, and then I think finally the contextual BI. So letting so when someone business intelligence, when somebody's trying to do something, they should have the system giving them, without them asking, you know, the appropriate BI that should make it easier for them to do.
Are you using Office 12 at all for that, or is that your own BI?
So
I've seen the BI in Excel,
right.
for instance, which is
Right.
you can build beautiful charts now really easily.
So the starting point is great integration with SQL Server.
Okay.
And great integration with reporting services, and great integration with the new model-driven report designer that came out in SQL 2005, and as well integration with analysis services. So the first part, we've done a lot of work in each of the different products to make the extremely large data models of the business application friendlier and easier to consume, so that when you actually want to build the analytics and build the reporting. And then the second piece of that is continuing to work more and more to make it easy to use Office as the vehicle by which you surface that BI. You know, the first releases that you'll see, significant amount of work around the SQL Server piece, and then as Office 12 comes out, we're all doing work to take advantage of that and use Office as the vehicle to surface that stuff.
Cool.
So those are kind of the core things that I think you'll see as a short form difference in these Wave 1 releases.
What do you want to hear from customers who are trying out the new Wave 1 stuff?
I think that it's two things. One is that we'd love to hear about how this stuff is helping them work better, and the flip of that is what can we do next in order to make it even easier. And so as an example, I talked about some of the work that we did with Workflow Foundation, and in doing that and talking to partners about how we did that, one of the things we were able to do is identify some areas in the application where we could add capability in the application to make doing more of those things even easier. Okay. Right? And so, the most important feedback, it's great to get the part about what we did right, and what we're most interested in is sort of what can we keep doing in order to move down this path.
Cool. Anything else we should know about Dynamics before what are you going to be showing off at the Convergence conference? I guess that's the big partner conference.
That's right.
So you got all these guys who are
customers and partners. Yeah.
So these guys who are buying the stuff are going to be there, right? With saying, "Hey, I'm looking at you, and I'm looking at XYZ other company to,
So I think a lot of the things that we've talked about today. So we will show. We're going to show some of the UI updates. So in order to have really great looking, compelling UI in a business application, and one of the things we've been spending a lot of time on is building great controls that are kind of provide things that we absolutely need in the business application. So you'll see some really neat looking UI, and we'll do demos around that. We'll show off a lot around the web services work. We'll show off a lot around integration with Office, and we'll show a lot around the things that we're doing with the Workflow Foundation.
I'm sensing, I didn't key in on it earlier, but that's probably where the business opportunity for third-party developers, right, who are or partners or whatever, consultants.
There's absolutely a new opportunity. I mean, the opportunities that were always there for consultants around business apps remain there, but the new thing, absolutely, I think, is around using workflow, using Office, and using those together with the business applications. We've done a lot to enable that. We're going to show some great examples of things that can be done. We've also, in fact, started to put some stuff, for example, on got.net that talks about how you can build things in Outlook and integrate those with the business application. So, for example, there's a great sample about being able to take time and bill it to a project. So the business application knows about the projects and knows about the billing part. Outlook Calendar gives you a natural, kind of great place to sort of look at your time, so you can book a meeting with a customer. Okay. Click on it and say, I'd like to attach this to a project. Use the Visual Studio tools for Outlook, so VSTO, together with the business application to make that work. And so we decided, along a lot of these things, we're making a bunch of capabilities and opportunities available. We decided to build the samples that actually show how it's done and put those up on got.net for people. So.
Cool. Anything else that we should cover?
You should come back as we finish milestones, and you can get more film in the bottle.
You don't want to see me drunk. My camera work gets really woozy.
I said you could film it. I didn't say that.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
It was a lot of fun.
That was great.